Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Rockin Kats, brought to us by Atlus. Rockin Kats has you playing as the jazz cat Willie, trying to get his girlfriend back in several different scenarios. The game is broken up into 5 different levels, or channels, and you can select them in any order, well, the first 4 in any order. There's also a bonus area, as well as a shop that you can participate in, buying some useful items there. The big gimmick to Rockin Kats is you have a fist on a spring that you're able to punch your enemies with. You're able to grab objects as well as grab onto platforms and swing your way around. The game is at its core an action platformer and does test your platforming skills later on, especially trying to get up some of the more difficult platforming segments. For this run of the game, I'll be completing all the levels and then completing the extra bonus level that you can get once you've completed the game. If you hold down the attack button, you'll hold your fist out and in an open palm, and you can catch objects that way and throw them back at enemies. For this first mini-boss, we're just going to keep on punching the bird and keep it at bay. After a few hits, it'll turn blue and get angry and start coming at us even harder, so we're going to keep on punching it. You can do diagonal punches to kind of keep hitting it, as well as jump over most of the eggs that it's firing out. Continue over to the right and drop down into the subway station and continue on to the next part of the game. Here in the subway station on the skateboard, we're going to be jumping over enemies as well as dealing with enemies on the train itself as we're trying to catch up with it. You can swing yourself on top of the train if you like and walk along with it. Thankfully the skateboard just keeps on going with you. At the end, be careful jumping off and you don't run into an enemy, and finish up the area. Right after that, we're going to get into this first area where we really got to work on our platforming and start swinging ourselves up to the top. You can do a punch to the ground, and that will boost yourself up with a nice little, boost jump. Some really cool mechanics overall with the game, and once you kind of get used to it, you can do some pretty cool jumping and such. Be careful heading over to the right in this big open area that you don't end up getting hit by the debris falling. And now it's time for the first boss encounter. After the cutscene, it's time to battle the bull band. You're going to take out the drummer and the bassist, as well as the singer at the bottom. Every time you punch them, you can see they react a little bit, so you know that you've made contact. You can do jump attacks diagonally in order to hit the guys up top. And every time the one at the bottom pops up, you can just do a quick punch to knock him back down into the ground. I love doing the diagonal hits downward, just because you bounce up in the air. It's just very satisfying and fun to do. Every boss in this game does take quite a lot of hits in order to kind of take out. You'll get used to that pretty quickly. Just try to do your best to watch out for the music notes, and when he pops up, he doesn't pop up directly below you and end up hitting you that way. Once he's taken care of, though, we're moving on to the next channel. Before heading to the next channel, I'm going to go ahead and show one of the bonus games. I'm going to show the roulette first. I'll also show the other 2 games off the next channel that we complete. But very simple roulette, you just kind of swing around it, and wherever you land is whatever you end up getting, which is told by the table on the right side. It always ends up changing up each time you do it. As we begin the next channel, watch out for the exploding objects being hurled towards you by these enemies here. Rockin Kats came out a little bit late in the NES's life, coming out in September of 1991. It's one of those games that I don't hear a whole lot of people mention, but it is a very fun little platformer for sure. In Japan, the game is actually known as New York Yankees, Yankies, and I guess because, you know, with the punch glove, yanking, because the hand, I guess, that's why they were going with that, especially considering it's also in New York City that the game takes place. It's just kind of a funny name overall. During this segment on the plane, we're just going to kind of jump up every few moments and punch the other dive bombing planes. You can stay stationary for the ones that are high up and just punch straight up into the air in order to deal with them. For the next mini-boss, we're going to take care of this dog that's going to fly back and forth using his ears, throwing out these green balls as well as exploding red objects. You can grab the green balls and throw them back at him, or just keep on punching him, whichever you prefer, in order to slowly drain his health and take care of this mini-boss fight. Once inside, head over to the left side, bounce up, and then start swinging your way up to the top. It definitely will take you some practice before you feel comfortable with the whole swinging mechanic in general. And even after a while, I still make plenty of mistakes. After swinging my way up here, I go through the open door and start heading over to the left side. Bounce off the ground so you can get up high enough in order to get to the platform above and make sure you don't accidentally fall into the big pit. Take out the blue enemies before continuing on to the left side here. Take out this one flying enemy and then grab a hold of the hook above, and then you can swing over to the left side. Once again, another one of those annoying blue enemies. Take care of that and then grab a hold of this and swing your way around until you can fling yourself all the way across inside of here, in which case just drop on down, pick up whatever items that you can along the way. Head inside the pipe, and it's time for the next boss fight. For this boss, you have all his hands that circle him, as well as the center face. Of course, that's where you want to punch, but you can also destroy the hands. Once all the hands are destroyed, the second part of the fight begins with him kind of circling and chasing you around. You can keep him in this form as long as you want. You don't have to destroy the hands if you don't want to. Eventually, though, just by attacking the regular center part, you're more than likely to destroy all of the hands, so be prepared for that second part of the fight. He just kind of keeps circling back and forth, and it's a little bit hard to dodge, just because he takes up a decent amount of space on the screen. Once he's taken care of, though, we're moving on to the next channel. For fun, we're going to go back down to the bonus channel and complete the basketball as well as the pipe toss game. For basketball, you have these baskets you gotta fling yourself into. It can be difficult to actually get the basket you want sometimes, but if you time it right, you can get the 1-ups. The pipe toss has you grabbing objects and throwing them, well, through pipes within the time limit. I am far from great at this one. I always have like just bad timing when it comes to jumping up and actually landing the shots correctly. But I still want to make sure I showcased the minigames just for the fun of it. Once the time is up, or you've collected a total of 8 different shots, it racks up and you have your money that you end up earning. It's time to move on to Playland, the third channel. Playland is like a carnival-esque themed place. As you're walking across here, punch upwards in the diagonal direction, that way at least you can hit the dog's eyes before they end up hitting you. It's kind of a funny thing to say. You can swing up here to the top if you want to get that extra life. There's also some health at the bottom. Bounce up here so that you can get up to the platforms and watch out for the plate-throwing panda bears that you don't end up getting hit. Head inside of the playland, you'll be in kind of like a haunted graveyard area. Swing on up to this platform if you like, if you've taken any damage, just to replenish some of your health. Punch up at the ghost as you're walking underneath of them in order to kind of deal with them. And just kind of keep moving, and you'll be able to outrun at least a little bit of the witches above throwing stuff, and kind of just keep on moving through this area quickly until you make it to the next mini-boss. Here you have a floating giant dog head that's going to move back and forth, this ghost dog head. We're going to keep punching at it in various directions. Watch out when he breaks apart. Stay underneath the center of him when he does that, so hopefully you miss the various pieces that go everywhere. It's a bit of an annoying fight, and it definitely will take you a little bit of time in order to best him. Once the dog head has been hit enough, it'll bounce all around the room and disappear, and we're continuing on to the next part. Here, be very careful not to fall down into the water below as we work our way around the platforms. You can either swing or just jump your way onto these. When you are swinging, you come out of it. When you punch in midair, you kind of stop yourself, so it's a nice way to kind of get up onto a platform but not go too far. Just a tough area with lots of enemies with the roller coasters and such. I just kind of keep on moving to get through it quickly. Then we're on to another climbing section. Start working your way up, watching out for the conveyor belts so that they don't pull you or push you too far to the left or right, as well as the various spikes that are all set up that you don't land on top of them when it ends up knocking you off of the conveyor belt. Just stand still and kind of like punch in the diagonal direction to start this area, and then jump over the plates that come up from below. Next segment, we start heading downwards. Watch out for the bat enemies as you do so. It's mainly the little mini bats that are the most annoying part of them. Gonna be very careful here when we make this jump across. And it's time for the next boss encounter. This is probably my least favorite fight in this game, just because it does take a while. It's easy to dodge the projectiles from the clown dog face thing that's firing, but the actual clown dog that starts rolling around you have to deal with can be a little bit more tough to manage. He'll roll across the screen, then come back to the left and land, in which case you can finally start hitting him. After a few hits, he will throw out a projectile. It's usually like every 2 or 3, so be prepared to move away from him when he does this, so that the projectile just goes straight downwards and doesn't end up hitting you. Then just rinse and repeat until the boss is taken care of. Not necessarily an extremely exciting battle, but it will take you a little bit of time in order to best this one. Just gotta jump over him each time he ends up rolling all the way around and go right back into that punching, and hopefully after a little while he'll be taken care of and we're moving on to the next channel. I'm going to head to the shop here and buy a couple of the items just for fun. The one I use the most is the boots, because you're able to hover and that helps you through a certain few areas of the game, so I do recommend picking those up at least. The next area is a Wild West themed place. I'm going to go ahead and equip this item just to showcase it. You have like this projectile that you end up adding to your attack, which is pretty cool. I'm always a fan of Wild West themed stages in various platformers, and the NES has quite a lot of Wild West themed levels. With the projectile, you can hit through some of the objects, which allow you to hit some of them a little easier than just kind of jumping towards the enemy. Right here we have our next mini-boss, this Rain Dance Dogs. They're going to try to attack you just by moving back and forth dancing, and you have to just keep attacking the dog on top of the totem pole over and over again. It's a little bit difficult to jump between the different dogs as they're dancing back and forth, but just be persistent, and once they're taken care of, we're moving on to the next area of the level. Be very careful, swing up here, you can grab a piece of health and continue over to the right side. Lots of these arrow shooting enemies coming at you, so you just gotta keep on moving through. Here I'm going to switch over to the hover boots and start hovering my way down. You can just kind of use that hover very effectively in order to kind of get around all of these various areas real quick and down to the bottom. Over here we end up landing inside of a minecart, and we're going to continue over to the right side. You got to duck underneath of the stalagmites and then jump over the spiked balls, and just kind of keep repeating this process for a little bit as you're making your way across the tracks in this place. You can also use the boots to hover if you like. The second section, continuing on the mine cart. Watch out for the flying enemies that will throw objects down at you. You can punch them diagonally when you jump and get over the item that they throw as well. Make a big jump at the end. You can float using the boots to finish off the jump if need be, and make your way over to the far right here. Just be careful of these enemies. You can hit them if you like, or just kind of float over them and ignore them and just keep moving. When you make it here, though, it's time for the next boss encounter. For this boss, you have this giant bird. It's going to throw rocks down at you, but as soon as you punch him, you can get the rock out of his talons. So as soon as you see the rock, go ahead and do a punch up and you'll drop the rock, or just make sure you're underneath and it'll drop straight down, and that way you can move to the left or right to avoid it. Usually I do straight up punches or the diagonal ones in order to hit the bird over and over again. It's very easy to hit him. It just takes a lot of hits in order to take care of the boss. I'm going to go to the shop and just buy a couple more of the objects. That way I bought everything I can. And it's time to go to the final channel. There's one more bonus level after this that we'll be doing, but that's after the credits. It's kind of weird that they have a extra level after the credits, but a few games back on the NES and other systems did that at the time. You can grab the flower pots being dropped from the various windows if you want to and throw them back at the enemies, but it's not something that you have to do. Quickly make your way through this area. Just a lot of enemies real fast coming at you. You just want to get to the other screen. Just keep pausing every few seconds with the windows and make sure that you don't accidentally get hit by a flower pot. Next segment, it's time to start climbing on up. It's difficult to see the enemies here because they blend in a bit. It's also difficult to hit some of these platforms with the glove. Just gotta kind of be persistent with it and start flinging yourself up as fast as you can. It's a lot of fun, but it takes practice to get used to it. Next up, we have a rematch against the Bull Band. We're going to do the same thing that we did before. We have the members that we're going to attack, as well as watching out for the main lead singer here that's going to shoot his notes out at us, as well as we have to watch out for the falling lights that consistently keep happening. I honestly think this is one of the tougher fights just because there is a lot going on and you have to do a lot more than some of the other boss fights. Every time you defeat one of these bosses though during this section, you end up getting your health back. So if you end up getting hit, don't worry, at least you'll be able to have full health after defeating the boss. After you defeat the boss, you'll be dropped off into a park area. There's a bunch of bouncing enemies that we're going to punch in mid-air as they're bouncing towards us. Be very careful of the water here as you make your way along these singular platforms. You can attack while you're doing your jumps or as soon as you land to make sure that you hit the birds in the air. Over here to the right side, we have a rematch against the first mini-boss we dealt with in the game, the chicken. Just kind of keep punching it, keeping it to the right side, watching out for the eggs by jumping over them. When it gets angry, it's going to, of course, get a little bit more aggressive towards you. Just kind of keep on doing what you've been doing with it. Once it's done, though, you do get your health back, just like with the other bosses, and we continue on, and here's a rematch now against the Rain Dance boss. Just do like we did before, jump between the dancers and try not to get hit by them directly. It can be difficult to land your shots because of them, but don't worry too much about health. As long as you survive the fight, you'll have full health again after you defeat the boss. In the next section, we're just going to be swinging our way up to the top. Watch out for the various enemies that are in the windows. There's some bats right here that we're going to try to get past. You may have to take them out if need be. After that, it's some more of those flower pot hurling enemies. When you reach the top, it's time for another boss encounter. Here's our rematch against the giant bird boss that we dealt with before. Just keep on hitting him as soon as there's rocks appear, and be to the left or to the right depending upon where he is, so you don't end up getting hit by the rock. And just jump up and keep punching him until he's taken care of. Not a difficult fight, but it will take you a little bit, of course, just like last time, in order to drain his health. In the next area, you have more of those big poles with the dog eyes alive on them. Just kind of punch and jump as you move across here to take care of them. In the next area, we're going to start working our way downwards. Watch out for the various bats. Take out the mini bats and the big bats if need be. And make your way to the bottom and to the door there. Here we have a rematch against this boss. Just do like we did before. We're going to punch at the center, watching out for the little fist and its two different moves, either shooting at us or bouncing around the room, in which case we just go underneath of it. Once you destroy all the hands, it will start to change up its pattern like last time. But we're going to mostly try to take it out before we end up really dealing with the hands. As soon as the next area begins, you're on a conveyor belt, so be very careful that you don't end up flying right directly into the spikes below. There's several conveyor belts and crushers that you'll have to deal with during this area. I recommend using the boots a little bit if you need to float over some of the spots. Then it's time for a rematch against this boss, the pilot dog. Just move back and forth. You can grab the green balls when he throws them if you like to, or just focus on punching him. Whatever you prefer. I'm honestly not sure which one of the two does more damage. You think the throw would do more damage, but I really don't know for sure. Thankfully, we get our health back after defeating the boss, and then we just continue over to the right and to the next door. Here the lights flicker unless there's a candle on screen, so just be cautious as you're making your way through. Just keep going all the way over to the right, and eventually you'll drop down and head back over to the left. Unfortunately, I can't really dodge that boulder right there, but we reach the next thing, and we take on the clown dog again. Just like before, we're going to dodge his projectiles very easily, just moving back and forth in the center of the screen. Do a jump, either floating or do a bounce jump, whichever you prefer, over him when he's rolling around, and then when it gets to that side, we're going to punch him a whole bunch, just moving slightly out of the way of the projectiles every few punches so that they don't end up hitting us directly. Then you're going to rinse and repeat until the boss is taken care of. Once we deliver the final couple of hits here, the clown dog, we're moving on to the next area. From here, work your way over to the right side, dealing with a couple of bats above you. You can do the float to kind of help you get across if need be. Be very careful swinging your way across this big old thing of water. And then get up on top of these pipes, and you can do a float to get over the rest of the spikes here, or at least most of them. If it falls and you hit the spikes, just continue over really quickly and finish up the area. Next up, we have our battle against Mr. Kong, the main minion here of the boss, and we're going to do these diagonal hits upwards. You can grab the bananas that he ends up causing to fall from the ceiling and throw them at him if you want. He also throws stuff from his pockets, or from his hands. You can just jump over it. Or a lot of times if you're hitting him really close, it'll just negate it altogether. Not a tough fight by any means, you'll just have to go underneath of him when he does some of his jumps. But it does take a while, just like all the other fights pretty much in the game. Unfortunately, punching him directly in the crotch doesn't end up doing any damage, though it would be funny if it did. Once we finally deliver enough hits, you bounce him off the screen, and we move on to the next part of the level. Yep, it's not over yet. It's a really lengthy stage. Keep jumping over the boulders that are rolling across the pipes, and then you can either float or jump down here and grab a hold of the wheels to throw yourself over to the right side. So here we go with the final boss here. We're going to attack him as we're jumping between the platforms, every so often jumping over the gunshots that he ends up sending out himself. He will move around the screen, which can be a little bit difficult to actually dodge just because there's not a whole lot of room to work with. When he does move though, just do what you've been doing, keep on punching as much as you can. Sometimes bombs will end up falling, you can grab them and throw them at him if you like. It'll take a little bit, but once he is done, we can enjoy the ending to Rockin Kats on the NES. But don't worry, we still have one more level left to go. So after the credits finish up, you'll then get to the Atlus 1991 screen. You have to stay here for just a little while, and then you'll be able to enter into the final stage of the game. Unfortunately, when you begin the next level, you don't have any of your items, and it is a very difficult level that it would be nice to have, especially the boots in. We start off with some tricky platforming as we work our way up these pipes to the top. Sometimes it can be very difficult to land where we need to and actually be able to continue up. You have to sometimes propel yourself off the wall, and that way you can kind of get onto some of the platforms here. Up here, bounce off of the rat, and you can get up high enough to grab a hold of this, and then fling yourself into the pipe. Be careful as soon as you get into the next area that you don't accidentally immediately go into the spikes below. We're going to be bouncing a bunch on the ground using our punch glove in order to slowly move ourselves through the area, or we end up getting hit, just kind of run quickly through this place. Whatever one you end up wanting to do. It's just a very difficult little area. Work your way up swinging to the top. Make sure you get a nice good swing here, and you have to kind of get up high enough to continue on. Use the wall if need be to kind of bounce yourself a little bit, and it may be able to help you. Here, carefully time it, and you can swing through the enemies that are coming at you. In the next area, carefully jump back and forth, bouncing yourself up the wall, watching out for the big boulders that come down at you. It's time now for the rematch against the boss. It's similar to the last time. I think it's identical as far as the overall battle is concerned. But you just have to beat him again, and then we can enjoy the ending again to Rockin Kats on the NES. Thankfully, this boss isn't too difficult to deal with. Be careful of the few bombs that do drop, that you don't accidentally run directly into them. I'm taking my time a little bit, being extra cautious just because I don't have any health left. I can duck underneath some of the bullets when need be. Once you deliver the final hit, though, you can enjoy the ending again to Rockin Kats on the NES. So there you have it, Rockin Kats on the NES. You get the ending again with them both kissing with the Statue of Liberty in New York City in the background. And with that, though, that will wrap up this episode of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.